Inoue, Fulton, obviously Crawford versus Spence. Two great fights, two great performances. I'll give it a couple of minutes, see if anyone pulls in. What's going on, Bruce Gas Boxing? Salute to you, my friend. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up if you can hear me. What a hell of a performance from Crawford. What a hell of a performance from Crawford and Inoue. You know, that fight. What's going on, Bot Fowles? That fight that Crawford had. That was such a beating. That was such a one-way traffic fight. My prediction was that it will be a one-way fight, but not to that extent. He took a big beating, Spence did. And Inoue, what a great performance from him as well. What a great performance. Dominated. Fulton. Both fighters clearly outclassed, the opponents. With Fulton, he was, and mind you, both of these fights were 50-50 fights. A lot of the public was saying, yo, what's going on, Nate? Thanks for stopping in. A lot of the public was saying, I'm going for Fulton, I'm going for Spence. It was 50-50. And these guys made them look, like amateurs. Their performance, how they controlled the outcome, was a major really, think about how great these guys are. Crawford, people who've doubted him for a while now, for a long time they've doubted him. And, he's shut everyone up. And Spence, I don't know with Spence, I watched the fight at work and was laughing. It was, it was a beating, Nate. It was a beating. Spence, you've never seen Spence take a beating like that before, with his face looking like that, and he just didn't look like he was in the fight at all. After that second round, first round, sure, you could say, was a close fight. It was anyone's fight. I'm guessing that you're talking about that one, the Crawford Spence, and even the Fulton one, that was also a very dominant one. But the Spence Crawford, it was anyone's fight until that second round. Once that second round came, and Spence was on the canvas, that was basically it. That was basically it. I've never seen Spence look like that, and I don't even know if Spence should have a rematch, with Crawford. I just think that it was just too dominant for a rematch. I think he took too much punishment, You know what I mean? I just think that he just took too much punishment, and it's not like Spence can come back and knock out Crawford with one punch. That's not going to happen. You know what I mean? Spence is a guy that, he takes him a few combinations to get them down. So, I just think that Spence shouldn't rematch Crawford, in my opinion. The beating that he took, I think that Crawford was just far too superior. And, he made him fight his fight. Crawford made him fight his fight. He kept him at mid-range. Crawford, Spence wanted to try to get on the inside and he couldn't do so. Crawford made sure that he kept him at mid-range and just dominated, outboxed, outlanded him. It was very one-sided, a very one-sided fight. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about round after round, knockdowns, You know, he was taking a real beating. And I think that everyone was just shocked, you know, everyone was stunned at how it was such a one-sided fight, you know, very one-sided fight. And I mean, with Inoue, you gotta, you know, you gotta take your hat off to him, you know, controlling the fight as well, you know, against Fulton. And both of these guys just, you know, beat the opponents, you know, in all aspects, you know, in all different, you know, throughout the fight, you know, everything you can think of, mid-range, short range, long range. You know, these guys never had an answer for any of it. And it was just a very one-sided, dominant performance for Crawford, and very one-sided, dominant performance for Inoue. You know, that's all I really got to say. You know, I mean, I don't think there should really be a rematch. I think that Crawford should go up and wait. You know, I mean, Crawford called out Charlo after the fight. You know, he pointed to Charlo and said, "Listen, you're next." I just think that Spence, the beating that Spence took, I don't think that he should go back in there with Crawford. You know, I think that's the wrong fight for him. You know, he needs a tune-up for sure. And with Inoue, you know, I mean, a lot of people are saying, listen, this guy should fight Tank and should fight these other guys. You know, Inoue's going to do what he's got to do. You know, he's going to get the four bouts at 1-22. I think it's going to be, you know, a clear run for him, you know, going forward. I think that Inoue will become, you know, 122 undisputed champ. For Crawford, I think that, you know, there's nothing left for him to do at welterweight. I know that there is welterweights out there, but, you know, this is the full belt era. There's nothing for Crawford to really prove. He may challenge Spence again. You know, Spence said, listen, I want another fight at 154, but, you know, I'm pretty sure that Crawford is trying to get that Charlo undisputed title off him. You know, I'm sure that that's the route that he's going to take. I don't think that these guys will stay at welterweight. I know that Spence definitely won't. You know, I know that he's definitely going to move up in weight. And, I mean, it was just such a one-sided dominant performance. You know, what's your guys' take on the fight anyway? I mean, they said that he was laughing at the fight. What's going on, Al Dub? Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I just think, you know, there's nothing there for Crawford to prove at 147. I know that Boots Ennis is, you know, calling him out and things like that, but I think that, you know, Crawford will have to fight Spence at 154. But I just think that, you know, Spence, I don't see him winning, you know, and it just looked like he couldn't fight. You know, he never had any answers against a southpaw. You know, when was the last time that Spence fought a southpaw? That's another question. When was the last time that he fought a southpaw? What was it, 7 years ago? What, 6 years ago? You know, it's a really long time that I can recall when Spence fought a southpaw. He was an active fighter coming in, challenging a guy that's, you know, far more superior. And that's the thing with Porter, you know, he also couldn't just go in there and fight how he wanted to fight. You know, with Crawford, you really need to think about what you're doing. You can't just jump in. You know, and the thing is that, you know, because Crawford managed to stop Spence's jab and keep him at mid-range, you know, Crawford made Spence fall right into his trap. You know, he wanted him to have a boxing fight with him, and that's what happened. That's what happened. You know what I mean? It was a very one-sided beating, you know, a rundown, you could say. And, I mean, it's about time, you know, that we we put these fighters, we put these fighters ahead, and we pull the straw and say, listen, this guy's the better guy. Now we know that Crawford is the guy to win. He's the guy to move forward. He's the best at 147. What's going on, Mr. Whistles? Scratching Pete, thanks for tuning in. Now we know that Crawford is the man at 147. We know that he's got to be up there with, the legends, Mayweather, Pacquiao, one of the greatest at 147, Terence Crawford. We know that now. He's beaten the top guy. I just think there's nothing for him to prove at 147, me personally, my opinion. And I think that Spence may need to consider, fighting someone else if he's going to continue. I just don't see him, as good as he is. I just think that he can't fight a southpaw like Crawford. You know what I mean? That's my opinion anyway. I hope everyone's good. Thanks everyone for tuning in. You guys got any thoughts on your end? I was very impressed, from Inoue. Excuse me, Inoue and Crawford, very impressed. With Inoue, he looked like the defending champion. Fulton had absolutely no answers at all. And both of these fights, the Fulton fight with Inoue and Crawford fighting Spence, both of them had a similar strategy in terms of using a great jab, using a great straight, stiff jab. Both of these guys. What's going on, boy? Thanks for tuning in. The greatest at 147, for sure, that's what I'm saying. These guys, Crawford's answered everything, that needs to be answered in terms of who's the best at 147. Terence Crawford is, he's made history. And, like I say, with Inoue and Crawford, both of them had a very strong straight, their lead shot. It was like a stiff shot. In Inoue's case, there's hits to the body, to Fulton. Fulton had no answers for that at all. He just kept coming and hurting Fulton. You know what I mean? And that's, and he didn't really show off his hand speed. He was very smart, just like Crawford. They were very smart the way that they boxed. They sort of hid the attack. They didn't show off too many punches. They fought where they need to be thrown. And the knockout from Inoue. What sort of knockout was that? What was that? That was a Jet Li move. Jackie Chan move. He hits Fulton and then comes lunging, or does a 3-step, whatever he done. Leaps in midair and lands a hook. How does that happen, man? Only Inoue can do a punch like that. He's got that instinct of finishing guys off. He's a finisher. Him and Bud Crawford. They both know where they stand in terms of power. And Inoue, he's got a long way to go. And I remember when he won that fight, people were saying, this guy needs to be in the, top 5 pound for pound as, the greatest fighters out there now. After that Crawford performance, you've got to put Crawford at number 1. You have to. You have to put him at number 1. To beat a champion, like that, that was a beating. That wasn't just a win, that was a beating. That reminded me of the Fury Wilder 2. When Fury just went in there and gave Wilder a beating. That's what that fight reminded me of. Crawford just kept round after round beating up Spence. And I don't think that Spence has that. With Wilder, sure, he's always been a guy that relies on the one punch. Spence doesn't have that. He's a guy that relies on closing distance. He's a guy that relies on, short range hooks. He likes to be right on your face, and most importantly, he likes to fight behind the jab, and he couldn't do that with Crawford. Crawford made sure that he kept him mid range, and he that first round was plain and simple. The first round, Crawford wanted Spence to throw the jab all the time. He wanted him to do that so that he can keep him there. He wanted him to box with him. That's what he wanted. And when he tried to come in, that's when Crawford started countering him. When he tried to come in with the wide shots, the hooks to the bodies, that didn't work. That didn't work. Crawford made sure that he didn't get too close. He turned it into his fight. Just like with Porter, Porter couldn't get too close like he did against Spence. Crawford's a guy that can do that. He can change the fight up. And it was expected for Crawford to start off slow. You know what I mean? But I'm shocked at the beating that Spence took. I wasn't shocked at the result. I wasn't shocked at the knockdowns and all that. But I was shocked at the beating that Spence took. Because I never seen Spence like that. You know what I mean? I never seen Spence take that sort of beating before. And with Inoue, I just think that he's got a long career ahead of him. I see him, getting undisputed at 122. I see him moving forward. I see him, doing great things in boxing. But just that beating that Spence took, round after round after round, you see Spence busted up. And you just think to yourself, wow, is this Errol Spence fighting? You just can't believe it. You can't believe it. You're in disbelief. I saw Spence on the ground in the second round, and I'm thinking, this guy's getting a good beating, You know what I mean? What's your guys' take on it anyway? Do you think a rematch is called for, or do you think that they should do a rematch? Do you think they should run it back? What did you guys think of the fights? Were you impressed with Inoue? What's your guys' take on that? I'm guessing that Nate said that he watched the fight at work. I'm guessing he's talking about the Spence fight. I think the Inoue fight was early in the morning for most. Bruce Gas, not sure if he's still here. Thanks for stepping in, Bruce Gas. Bud Fowles. And what's your guys' take on that fight anyway? If you guys are still here, you got access to the comment section. Do you think there should be a rematch? Do you think that the outcome will be different at 154? Because I certainly don't. I just think that Crawford, when a guy beats you that badly, there's no need for a rematch. You know what I mean? What's going on? Real Boxing RQ, thanks for stopping in. I did give you a shout out. You hit the nail on the head with your prediction. I knew this would happen. I watched Errol come out fighting to win, so fighting for his life. That fight should have been stopped, and everyone knows that Derek James should be fired. Yeah, he took a real beating, that's for sure. That, like I say, reminded me of the Fury versus Wilder 2 fight. You know what I mean? That's the sort of beating that Spence took. But Spence was on the ground multiple times, and I don't know if he can bounce back. Derek James, he was saying that he was talking to the doctors. And the thing about the fight, that didn't really stick with me was that how Spence came round after round with the same strategy. I knew that he was frustrated, but you would think after, being on the ground multiple times that he would start trying to box on the back foot, you know what I mean? But he kept trying to press the fight. He kept trying to close distance, but, he needed to recover. You couldn't just keep going in there and getting busted up like that, you know what I mean? If Derek cared, he would have stopped that fight. He suffered the car accident, and he's never going to be the same after that. The car accident, yeah. He's been through a lot, Spence. He's been through a lot. And I mean, that was a hell of a beating. I know that he came back and he done a number on Ugas. He came back and he looked great against Ugas. But even the Ugas fight, when Ugas got him in the eye, I mentioned that a couple of times. Ugas, Spence was close at close range to him, and Ugas managed to get him in the eye, and Spence froze. He froze, and then all of a sudden, Ugas goes and starts, almost knocks him out. He basically hits Spence. Spence bounces off the ropes, and you think to yourself, wow, was that from the accident? Was that because of the eye? You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's what I was saying. He needs to come in 120% against Crawford. And most importantly, he needed a tune-up fight. He hasn't really fought any southpaws in the last 6-7 years, to my knowledge. I might be wrong. Correct me if I am. When was the last time that Spence fought a southpaw? You can't afford to be taking shots from a guy like Crawford that's knocked out every single guy that he's fought at welterweight. You can't. Especially with that eye. You know what I mean? And where was the guard? He wasn't really protecting the eye as well. His guard was pretty dropped down. He was basically trying to swing wide to the body. It wasn't a good look. Definitely should have been stopped, and there should not be a rematch. Ain't no way he has a chance. And I'm a Spence fan. Now, that's for sure. There shouldn't be a rematch. I just think that, a beating like that, Spence needs to consider fighting someone lower than Crawford, a guy that can't punch that hard, or even consider, taking time off. He suffered brain damage. I was terrified watching him get beaten like that. I've never seen his face look like that. It was a hell of a beating, it was a beat down for sure. It was a beat down for sure. Like I say, Fury Wilder too. It was that sort of beating. It was that sort of beating that he just didn't look there at all. He was getting punched all the time. He was getting punched with clean shots. He was getting, his speed wasn't there. You could tell that, those power shots were slowing him down. With the Ugas fight, the only thing I've seen is when the mouthpiece came out. I felt that was more of a lapse of a bad judgment by Spence. Yeah, I mean, we saw the mouthpiece come out, and we thought that's probably why he got hit. But it's the punch before that where he gets hit in the eye. I think it was an uppercut where Ugas hits him, a short punch, and Spence just freezes. Maybe the mouthpiece, but I was just thinking it could have been the accident. I might be wrong, but I mean, you can't, Crawford's a guy that, he takes every opportunity that's there. He's going to, if he sees an opening, especially once he's figured you out, and I mean, it didn't take him long to figure out Spence, because Spence is a guy that, if you watch all of Spence's fights, he's a guy that, he only throws the combinations behind the jab. What he first needs to be dominant, establish the jab, and then he starts getting busy. But he couldn't even do that with Crawford. He couldn't get his jab there. Crawford was beating him to it. Crawford was blocking the jab. He was countering the jab. He just had no rhythm at all. And that second knockdown, I think from that point, that was it. That was it. We could see that there was no coming back after that. He tried his best, and Crawford kept, making him pay. This fight never should have happened. He was a shot fighter in there, and I'm taking anything from Crawford. I'm not taking anything from Crawford at all, but everyone knew this stuff going into the fight. The scar tissue too. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a fight that was, that was definitely overcooked. It was a fight that was overcooked. It should have happened a lot earlier. It's very unusual that you see a guy taking a whole year off to fight a mega fight. It's very unusual that you see that. You know what I mean? Where they take a whole year off, and obviously, with the Again, going back to Fury Wilder, the trilogy, there was arbitration, there was all that delays and all that stuff, but within this case, you question why did Spence take off that much time, because the first time the fight wasn't made, Crawford had a tune-up, you know what I mean? Crawford had a tune-up fight and then he fought Spence, and you need to have these tune-up fights, and it's definitely going to show you where you are physically, mentally, you know what I mean, especially when you're challenging a fighter, a guy that can punch. And even with Fulton, he needed to have a tune-up fight against a guy that can punch. You can't go in there a bit rusty. You know what I mean? I know that Fulton's a slick guy and he can box and all that, but those power shots really slow you down and they really dominate. And, you have to be your sharpest you can be, when you're going into these fights. You can even take shots to the face. His face swells up. He can't even take shots to the face. His face swells extremely bad, like Miguel Cotto's did after. Like I say, it was a beating. It was a beating. It wasn't a win. It was a beating. It wasn't a dominant performance. It was just a Spence got destroyed moment. He just got smashed. You could say. He tumbled. He tumbled and he fell. And I think that's it for him at 147. Without a doubt. And I was hoping for, a more interesting fight. I was hoping that Spence would at least catch Crawford a couple of times. But Crawford's defense was just, far too superior for Spence. It seems like Spence never had any defense at all. And, I don't know what he was thinking, just going in there trying to muscle his way up and trying to press Crawford back to the ropes and trying to, I don't know what he was thinking. He definitely needed time off in those rounds to try to recover. He became a meme everywhere. Yeah, it was a beatdown for sure. We now know Crawford is the guy at 147. I don't see him. It's possible that Crawford might challenge Inoue. It just depends what Spence is going to do. If I'm Spence's team, I'm saying don't activate the rematch clause. As much as you want it, don't activate the rematch clause. You've been through a lot. And especially not against Crawford. You can't go in there against Crawford. You got to take some time off. If I'm his team, I'm saying, listen, Spence, you got to take some time off. You got to take some time off and just recover. You can't afford to be inactive and come back and then get a beating like that. That's the worst way of taking a beating. It's better to stay active, but first you need to just recover, and we need to see where you're at with your health. You know what I mean? He can't come back again. That's what I would say to Spence. I think with Crawford, he wants to challenge Charlo. He wants to fight Charlo. Inoue is a much fresher fighter with no brain damage and should be much more competitive, but Crawford will be too strong for him as well. Yeah, he might challenge Inoue. He is another IBF mandatory, I believe. If the Charlo fight, if the Spence fight doesn't happen at 154, which I'm hoping that it doesn't. I'm hoping that Spence doesn't go ahead of it. We already know that Spence, he slurs his speech and he's been through a lot. The accidents, he's had, eye surgery. I don't really want to see him back in the ring, to be honest. I don't want to really see him challenging guys, even at 154 if it's not Crawford. I don't want to see him go out like that. He should think about calling it a day, or at least taking a year off. He's got to at least take, some time off. Some time off to recover. But the Inoue fight might happen. You know, the Ennis fight might happen. I think that Crawford's gonna try to fight Charlo, but obviously Charlo's got to beat Canelo. You know, which is another big fight coming up. And then obviously, you know, if he does do that, then it's most likely Canelo will have a rematch clause. You know what I mean? So let's just say that Charlo loses. That's still, you know, quite a while. You know, that's still quite a while. So I mean, I think Crawford will have another fight before he fights Charlo. What's going on, Ty Robs? Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate your time, my friend. Go check out Ty Robs. Got the Madden plays. You know, click on the name. Go to channel. You know, hit the red button. Same with everyone else. You know, check everyone out. Check out the channels. We're just talking about the beating that Spence took Rob. You know, the one-sided beat down. Crawford just shown that his level's ahead. He will smoke boots. Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, like I say, you know, I don't think Crawford has anything to prove at 147. You know, but he should still be active. You know what I mean? Maybe he should actually have a tune-up fight at 154. You know, I think that's probably the best solution for Crawford. You know, it's not good to go up and wait and then not have a tune-up. Even though he's got that, you know, that skill and that power, it's always good to get comfortable in your weight. You know what I mean? If it's not against Spence, maybe challenge, you know, someone else, possibly, you know, Castano. Challenge someone up there at 154. You know what I mean? Challenge someone up there at 154 and before fighting Charlo. You know, before fighting Charlo for another undisputed. But I mean, history was made. You know, history was made. Crawford was just far too superior. And I mean, what about Inoue? You know, what about Inoue, I should say. What about Inoue? What a hell of a performance from him. You know, I know that a lot of people were shocked from that as well. You know, very shocked at that performance. But now, real boxing IQ, you know, you've got the right answer there. You know, I mean, Spence definitely took a lot. You know, he's got to see where he's at. You know, physically. You know what I mean? Inside his mind, things like that. You know, go have scans and just see where he is. Can he still box? Can he continue? You know what I mean? Errol Spence took so many headshots, it was brutal. It was very brutal. You know, it was a it was a jaw-dropping fight. You know, you watched the fight and you thought, wow, you know, this guy's taking a real beating. And I mean, I'm glad that the referee stopped it. I'm glad that even though, you know, Spence was still standing, you know, you don't want to take too many shots to the head. You know what I mean? Eventually, Crawford would have finished him off. And the referee done the right thing. You know, if the corner wasn't going to stop it, the referee done the right thing by stopping the fight. I know that Crawford was still standing, but you could just see it in Spence's face. Crawford was far too versatile. He was too versatile. And mainly, you know, he made him fight his fight. And dominated, you know, just destroyed Spence. Destroyed him. Ended his 147 career. And I mean, I don't see him coming back at 147 at all. You know what I mean? If he comes back at all, you know, I'll be surprised if, you know, if he comes back stronger or anything like that. I don't think that he will. You know, I think that If he fights Crawford again, Crawford does the same thing, but worse. I think that, maybe the next headshot, Spence may be out for good. You know what I mean? He needs to be careful. Especially when Crawford's that accurate with his power punches. He needs to be careful. You know what I mean? It's really a one-sided fight. A very one-sided fight. And where to from here? Where to from here? He was very accurate. He was extremely accurate. He didn't waste any punches. Crawford is so gifted he can probably be undisputed at 154 as well. Agreed. Agreed. I agree with that comment. He's a very gifted fighter. Power-wise, skill-wise, everything. Very gifted. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does become, after that performance, if he does become undisputed at 154. Obviously, we need to see if Canelo can beat Charlo. That fight's in September. Because Charlo's going up in weight, the belts are safe. So, in Crawford's case, it could be a matter of 2 fights away. We could see him undisputed at 154 by next year. You know what I mean? It could be that soon. And he has called out Charlo. And if Spence can't do the job against Crawford, which we saw, I'm sure that his friend Charlo will want to try to get some revenge. You know what I mean? I'm sure that Charlo will want to try to come back and, do the right thing and beat Crawford, try to get revenge, do what a friend's meant to do, beat the guy that beat you, you know what I mean, have his back. So I think that Charlo might even convince Spence, you need to stop, you need to step aside, and you know what I mean. And Canelo, Canelo and Charlo is the next fight that we're going to look for. That fight's going to happen in September. That should be an interesting one. Canelo against Charlo, just around the corner. That's the next fight to look for. If you're a Crawford fan and you want him to become undisputed, you've got to watch that fight. And just see, what Crawford can do next. I'll go for Canelo. Now for sure. I'm picking Canelo as well, Rob. I just think that even though Canelo hasn't really looked the same, he hasn't really looked the same for a while. I just think that the power that Canelo has in those hooks, I just think that that's gonna, and as well as the defense and all that, I think that his counter punching and eventually, he's gonna catch Charlo with body shots and things like that, and I think that eventually Charlo's gonna start slowing down. That's my prediction in that fight. I think that the first couple of fights may be close. But I think that eventually Canelo's gonna start landing some meaningful shots and just start slowing down Charlo. You know what I mean? That's what I think anyway. But yeah, man, it's been a great outcome. We've had some good opinions in here. A lot of people in here. People are saying that Spence should hang it up. He took that much of a beating. The Canelo fight should be interesting for sure. Canelo against Charlo. That's the next one I'm looking forward to. Obviously, we got AJ against White coming up. We got a couple of heavyweight fights. Usyk against Dubois around the corner. AJ against Dillian White around the corner. And then obviously, we got the big one, Charlo against Canelo. And yeah, man, I mean, what a week of boxing, what a great week of boxing. And I mean that fight that they had, on that Wednesday, that Tuesday, whatever time it was, that really spiced things up. For the Spence Crawford fight, they kept the public on edge, watching boxing and things like that. That was a interesting one, Inoue winning convincingly like that, and then Crawford winning with a dominant performance as well. I mean, it's been a great week for boxing, for the new champions, the new guys, stepping up and becoming. One guy, makes history, becomes undisputed champ, the first undisputed champ at 147. And the other guy, in a way, convincingly beating Fulton, the champion at 122. I mean, yeah, man, it's been great. It's been a great week for boxing for sure. I still see a couple in the chat. What fight are you guys looking to next? That's a question. Who's gonna watch the White versus AJ fight? Yeah, I appreciate everyone stopping in today. And I appreciate everyone's time. And yeah, man. Big congratulations to Crawford for getting the win. Diaz versus Paul, your thoughts? Yeah, I'm gonna pick Diaz in that fight, Rob. Not really a big Paul fan, to be honest, but I mean, I'm picking Diaz to win that one. What's your thoughts on that fight, Diaz against Paul? I'm guessing that yeah, going for Paul. I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, I don't really follow the Paul brothers, to be honest. I know that there's another fight happening. I don't really follow those. I follow the big fights. But what's your take on that one anyway? Diaz versus Paul. I'm going for Diaz, but Paul is bigger, younger, and faster. There he is. He is bigger. He is bigger, younger, and faster. That's for sure. But yeah, I don't really follow them too much. The Pauls. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Diaz fan. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of obviously we had that big fight out of the way. There's a lot of fights to look forward to in the future. And I mean, apparently the Wilder versus AJ fight's been put off to January, to my knowledge. So I mean, I don't follow Paul either. That's for sure. As well as Nico Ali and Tommy Fury and people like that. I don't really follow those guys. I know that Nico Ali's a professional boxer, but I'm just not a fan. To be honest, I'm just not a fan. Agreed. He should fight a real boxer. I mean, even Tommy Fury, he's challenging. I think he's challenging KSI. That guy's not a boxer. You know what I mean? Who's KSI? You know what I mean? I mean, It's for me. It's destroying the sport. You know, I mean, we just want to see especially heavyweights. You know, I want to see the heavyweights start mixing it up. That's another fight. You know, Joyce versus Zhang. That's coming up soon as well in September. Joyce versus Zhang. AJ versus White. You know, there's a couple of heavyweight fights, and then Usyk versus KSI the huge. That's right. You know, he's fighting Tommy Fury. You know, that fight's gonna be in October. And I mean, these fights are getting announced all over the radio, nationwide, international. And you know, they're getting more promotion than the Crawford versus Spence fight. You know what I mean? The real boxing fight that fighting fans have been waiting for. You know, no one's talking about that, but people are talking about KSI against Tommy Fury. You know, fights like that's getting promoted and announced on the radio and things like that. You know, it's just shocking. You know that boxing has come to, you know, guys, you know, you might as well chuck Snoop Dogg against Eminem. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. It's become like a reality boxing ring or something. You know, like just something really off that real boxing fans don't want to watch. You know, I don't like watching that. Even when the old guys come in, you know, when we had the Evander Holyfield and things like that, you know, that shouldn't happen. I mean, Pacquiao, I think, shouldn't make a return, in my opinion. You know, we saw him take a beating from Ugas, although he went the distance. You know, I just don't want to see him go out taking big shots. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I'm not a fan of those you know, fantasy fights or unfantasized fights. You know, I mean, I don't even see them as fantasy fights. They just ruin the sport. But I'm definitely not watching any of those. I'm not watching the Paul fight. I'm not watching the KSI fight. Um, but you know, yeah, I'm just not a fan of it. You know, I'm just not a fan of it. What's going on, Iceman? Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, my friend. Thanks for tuning in. What was your take on the Spence Crawford? Do you think that he should have a rematch? What do you think on that? Iceman, you know, we all saying that Spence took a hell of a beating, you know, wasn't good for his mind and things like that, you know, his conditioning. No rematch, agreed, you know, agreed, no rematch. I think that Spence needs to rest. Um, what a dominant performance, you know, what a dominant performance we had. We talked about it a lot on here. You know, I appreciate everyone that stepped in and talked on those fights and patient enough, you know, to hear me out, and, you know, appreciate the feedback of what you guys think as well. You know, it's always good to chop it up on here. I always appreciate everyone stepping in. You know, I encourage people to check each other out. I think Spence wasn't right. I was pulling for Spence. What do you mean? You were going for Spence, or you wanted him to throw in the towel? I don't understand that comment. I think Spence wasn't right. I was pulling for Spence. I mean, Spence just didn't look like Spence. You know, it just looked like he was challenging a amateur. They couldn't get on the inside. You know, that's what it looked like to me. Like Crawford just made the fight look a bit too easy. You know what I mean? We've seen Crawford against Porter, even Crawford Porter. You know, that was a close fight until Crawford knocked him out. I didn't think he was going to win, but I was hoping he would. Oh, okay, you're hoping that Spence would win? There. I mean, that's the thing, you know. We were all expecting at least some sort of competitiveness. You know, you didn't think that Crawford would just blow him out like that. You know, obviously people are going to give him props, well deserved and things like that. But I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, it was a hell of a beating. And where was the defense? You know, where was the defense? Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, it was weird. It was out of the ordinary. But then again, even the Inoue against Fulton, no one expected a beating like that. Fulton just got folded. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was crazy. It was definitely, you know, fights that we'll look back on and think, wow, were these guys actually at the top? Were these guys actually at the top of their division? Because it didn't seem that way. It reminded me of a few fights. It reminded me of the Fury Wilder 2. It also reminded me of Frazier against Foreman. Frazier having no chance against Foreman, and then it also reminded me of Cassius Clay beating Liston. Cassius Clay having no marks on his face, and then Liston, the doctors going in there to stop the fight. It's a hell of a beating, in not every aspect. Great performance from Crawford for sure. It was a great performance. Um, After the second round, that was the fight. I forgot Spence fell out of his car during the car crash. It was a hell of a car crash, Rob. The thing is, Spence came back and he beat Ugas. But Ugas is like a defensive fighter. He's a counter puncher, but he's not really a guy like Crawford that's going to really test you. You know what I mean? He landed on Spence a couple of times, and he did bother him and rocked him and things like that. But I mean, Spence fighting Crawford, if you had anything wrong with him, he shouldn't have fought him at all. His health needed to come first. And if I'm Spencer's team, I'm telling him to stay away from the rematch. I'm telling him to stay away. I think that Danny Garcia and Ugas took it easy on Spence, just my opinion. Danny Garcia went the distance with Spence. Ugas, I'm not sure Ugas was fighting for the title. But Ugas got a hell of a beating, Ugas really got beaten up. I just think that another thing, Iceman, Spence, when was the last time that he fought a southpaw? Look back, can you name the fighter? Because I can't even remember who it is. It's been what? It's been a very long time since he's actually fought a southpaw, you know what I mean? When was the last time that he fought a southpaw? That's, how do you challenge Crawford and you don't have a tune-up fight? He should know by now that Crawford prefers fighting at southpaw even though he's right-handed. Do you know what I mean? But no, he definitely didn't look like Spence out there. It could have just been Crawford's game plan. You got to understand that Spence is a guy that he always tries to land combinations after the jab, and he just couldn't be dominant with the jab. He couldn't initiate the attack. That's what I put it down to. I don't put it down to his conditioning. I put it down to just fighting Crawford's fight and getting outboxed, outschooled, outlanded, and not able to initiate attack, not able to close distance and fight his fight. I think that's what Spence's main problem was. He should have maybe went on the back foot after the second round. He didn't really need to chase Crawford, but he did it anyway. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of things that Spence done wrong. Trying to land wild shots to the body where Crawford's just waiting to counter you. Spence needed to first find his rhythm, find his jab, move around, maybe box on the back foot, try to get comfortable landing on Crawford instead of just going in there swinging and trying to be a bigger man and not being able to close distance, getting outlanded in a boxing match against a better boxer. He looked slow and weak, he did, he looked slow and weak, he just looked, I think it was, the first round I couldn't really see anything wrong with Spence. It was a good round for Spence, but we also know that Crawford's a slow starter. We know that Crawford takes his time to figure guys out. And I just think that once he figured out that I'm going to keep Spence at mid-range, once he landed on Spence, I just think that Spence didn't recover. You know, he just kept coming forward and kept coming forward with no real game plan. You know, coming forward trying to chase Crawford and getting countered and hurt badly. You know what I mean. You seen Crawford stacking. I mean, I take my hat off to Crawford. Finally, getting undisputed at 147. This is by far um, snacking and stacking. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just give Crawford his credit. This is the full belt era, you know what I mean? And Crawford's the man at 147. What's going on, Warmstrong? Go and check out Warmstrong's channel. Um, he looked terrible. He looked terrible. I mean, I was expecting at least. I was hoping that Spence would at least land some clean shots on Crawford. I wasn't expecting Crawford to walk out looking unscathed, unhurt, untouched. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It was a very unusual fight where we didn't think that Spence would take that much of a beating. Do you think that was a pound for pound fighter? I've always rated. Are you talking Spence or Crawford? I've always rated Spence as a pound for pound power puncher. In terms of short range power. He's a guy that likes to mix it up and deep inside the pocket. He smothers you with hooks and things like that. He's good at doing that. I've always considered him a pound for pound power puncher, but not really a guy that has it all. You know, who do you think can compete with Crawford? That's a great question. That's a great question. It's hard to when Crawford is unbeaten and he fights like that. It's hard to come up with a name that can compete with that sort of level. I mean, styles makes fights. You know what I mean. And Crawford's a guy that seems to figure people out a lot. I mean, Porter came close. I'll put it to you that way. He's not unstoppable. Porter came close. So I think a guy that can really pressure Crawford and not allow Crawford to turn it into a boxing match. That's the guy that's going to beat Crawford. Crawford will definitely go up in weight. I believe. I think that he will go up in weight. I don't think that Boots will beat Crawford. I mean, time will tell. Virgil Ortiz is a talent for sure. These guys are all great talents. Ortiz and Boots Innes but I just think that Crawford may just be on another level. I may be wrong. I may be wrong. That's just my opinion. Boots Innes is a big guy. He's going to have to definitely press Crawford. Crawford versus Jamal. I think that's going to be the next fight. Iceman. I think that obviously Jamal has to fight Canelo. If Canelo loses, then there'll probably be a rematch. Canelo wins. Jamal will definitely challenge Crawford. Do you know what I mean? Did you see Plants? Yeah, I saw that. I mean, I don't know what's up with that. I mean, that guy's been. I guess he's returning what happened to him. Do you know what I mean? But Crawford's definitely top guy. The fights I'm going to be looking at next is the heavyweights. So I mean, the welterweights and the heavyweights have always been my favorite divisions. And now we're finally going to get some action at heavyweight. It's not going to be great fights, but good enough fights for me to be interested in. Obviously, we got Dillian White against Anthony Joshua coming up. Man, I like Inoue. Yeah, Inoue was something. I mean, that knockout Ice Band, that knockout. That's one for the highlight reel. You don't see guys. That was like a martial arts, Jackie Chan flying hook. He lands the straight, and then the way that he bounced on him straight away, and the accuracy, of just getting him out of there when he hurt him. That was something else. That was speed, power, bit of taekwondo. I don't know what that was, but that was something special. Yeah, that was. I was shocked. The way that he done that. He caught him. I mean, he was landing on him all night. With those jabs. I think that those jabs were a lot more powerful than Fulton thought that they would be. I think those jabs definitely hurt Fulton and slowed him down. But I mean, the foot speed and the execution of how he finished that fight was just something special. That lands that hook, lands the straight, and then all of a sudden, if you're watching in slow motion, it seems like he's taking 2, 3 steps, but just how it looks so, natural. You know what I mean? Like a move or something. It wasn't like a panic and I'm gonna go for it. I know that I've hurt you. It was like just an accurate finisher. In a Mortal Kombat styles. You know what I mean? It was something special. He got him down and then celebrates. He gets back up and just finishes him off like nothing. And Fulton's meant to be the guy that's great on the defense. You know what I mean? And in a way, he was just so he was so good at showing his power, and not only showing his power, but also not showing too much. He was. It's like you don't expect what he's gonna throw. You know what I mean? He's not just throwing hands and this is my game plan. He really thinks about how he fights. That's what I like about Inoue. He's unpredictable, just like Crawford. He picks his shots. You know what I mean? He doesn't really just like you could say maybe a Pacquiao or even a Loma. You know how they throw 3, 4 shots, 4, 5 shots, and then the second or the third or the fourth punch lands. Inoue's a guy that he throws very accurate, very high IQ, very high, great skills, great movement, great speed. All that stuff. He doesn't. What's going on above of a certain age, man? You caught me close to the end of my stream. I appreciate you stepping in. We're just talking about the beatings that Spence took, the beating that Fulton took, talking about how great Inoue is. Definitely a talent, definitely a talent to look out for. And I see him doing great things. For Crawford, I think the Spence versus Crawford fight won't really, go ahead. I don't think it will go ahead. I don't think that it should go ahead. I'm hoping that Spence does a checkup or something like that, and they see something and doesn't allow him to fight. I just don't think that he should be taking more punishment like that again. Would you compare Inoue to the late Villarreal? Yeah, I mean, Inoue's, he's still work in progress. You know what I mean? He's still work in progress. I still want to see him. I mean, Fulton, I know that Fulton's great on defense, but I want to see Inoue against a guy that can press him. Dale, sure, he's got a great left hook. He took Inoue the distance. But I mean, I still want to see Inoue against better competition before I make that comparison. At the moment, Inoue is definitely great. It's definitely great. Definitely, I see him getting the full belts at 122. And he's got a great career ahead of him. A great career ahead of him. But yeah, great fight. great fights, great week of boxing. We can see now, this is definitely the full belt era. We see Charlo going up to fight Canelo. We see Terence Crawford winning the 4 bouts. We see Inoue winning the 4 bouts and then going up. We see Haney winning the 4 bouts. Now he's gonna fight Pograin. Definitely the 4 bout era. Never seen Inoue fight any highlights. See, you gotta see him fight, Rob. Watch his fight against. Inoue's been off the map for a lot of guys. Let's not get the story twisted. A lot of people never knew who Inoue was until he fought the legendary Don Air. The veteran Don Air. People know who Don Air is with his left hook. And Inoue's basically just getting seen now, Rob. You know what I mean. After that one against Fulton, he's only getting the recognition now. So watch the Fulton fight. Watch a bit of rounds. Check out the knockout. That's the thing to look out for. The knockout. That was amazing. That knockout. Definitely, you have to watch Rob. Yeah, you gotta watch Inoue. He's definitely a talent. One to look out for. One that's definitely going to be in people's pound for pound list now. You know what I mean? So check them out. It's a must. But yeah, man. It's been hour 6, hour 8 minutes. I want to thank everyone for stopping in. I appreciate everyone's time. Next fight is the Joshua versus White. Hoping that everyone returns back. I'm most likely gonna go live, maybe same time, possibly not. Who knows? But I'm gonna try to go live again next week. Tune in if you can. Hit the bell. You know what I mean. Hit the notification. Try to step in. Gonna talk heavyweights. Unrivaled told me about Inoue a couple of years back here. Inoue's one to look out for sure. Check him out. But yeah, I appreciate everyone stepping in. Shout out to the chat. We had, a bunch of people coming in today. The ones that were, that stuck around and talked up the boxing. It's always good to chop it up and hear your guys' opinion. I think the conclusion is no rematch. And possibly Spence needs to take time off. With Crawford, from what I'm getting is that Crawford, people want Crawford to fight Charlo. Man, Crawford was just different. Salute to all boxers that put their life on the line every time they go through. Yeah, that's for sure. Huge respect for Spence. He took it on the chin and said, listen, the better guy won. No excuses. Crawford definitely showed that he is the man at 147. I'm going to end it at that. The undisputed champ, Terence Crawford, made history. Salute to everyone. Shout out to everyone that stepped in. Appreciate your guys' time. Hope to catch you next time. Hit the bell if you don't mind, and then we'll chop it up again. Peace, warm, strong. Take care. Have a good one all. Take care, Rob. Take care, brother, for certain age. Us, man. I'm out. Catch you next time. Peace. Have a good one.